Welcome to Point Blank. This is your host, Panama Crypto. Today our guest is Wolf, or formerly known as Wolf of Poloniex. My man Wolf is the original creator of the infamous Exit All Crypto Markets in the midst of 2017 all season. He is probably one of the most experienced traders in crypto. Welcome, my man Wolf. Very happy to have you on Point Blank.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate you inviting me onto the show.
Sweet, let's get going. So, who is Wolf? What is his professional background?
I'm Wolf, I guess. For the past basically 3 years now, I think maybe even over a little bit 3 years. I don't know, time kind of flies when you're not really paying attention. But for the past few years now, I've been a professional trader, meaning I trade full time. And, due to a lot of the free time that you get in between trades, I tend to branch off into side work, either as an influencer, affiliate marketing, or, educational, whatever sort of fits the bill at any given point in time. But for the most part, I'm predominantly a professional trader that mostly focuses on the cryptocurrency markets.
What are your current projects inside and outside crypto?
Some of the current projects that I have going on for crypto right now is basically just my influencer slash signals channels that are predominantly free. That are all free actually right now. Basically, Twitter and YouTube are the biggest ones, as well as my Discord server, all free to access. I'm starting to focus more on YouTube just because it has a lot more opportunities and market exposure. But for the most part, I'm just trying to grow them all simultaneously. And aside from that, I am working with a few of my affiliate partners, or as an affiliate partner with some projects such as Stacked Invest. I'm auditing quite a few of their bots. Basically, every quarter, I'm going to be pushing out the performance records of each account trading on each bot. I'm basically a set it and forget it so that I can show individuals like how well some of these bots are. And of course, if they see that it's making gains, then they can use my affiliate link, et cetera, et cetera. And then also I am sponsored and affiliated with Bybit, which is predominantly the number one exchange that I use right now for cryptocurrency trading. So aside from that, it's mostly just trading at a retail independent.
Didn't you have like a big paid group also?
So back in 2017, I had a paid group known as the Wolf Pack back in 2017. That one was a rather large one. After 2018 and the bear market sort of hit, it basically went under with the rest of the market. And I didn't start it back up again. I recently started it back up because I had a lot of individuals reach out to me asking for, VIP services. So I started it back up, but it wasn't gaining the traction that I wanted in order to keep it, going, in order to sustain that group. So I basically just shut it down and continued providing my signals to the public for free, and hope to grow my following more so that way and profit from sponsorships more so than from any sort of paid subscription signal group service sort of thing.
Where you spend all your crypto and fiat aside girls, cars, and drugs?
So I actually don't do drugs that much anymore.
That's good to hear.
I don't drive either because I'm a digital nomad, so I'm usually traveling around the world, and it's too much of a hassle to get an international driver's license and also to rent cars everywhere. I'd rather just do mass transportation, especially since I always travel within very large cities. So for the most part, I actually don't spend my money much on anything. If anything, it's usually either out partying or food, since I can't cook, so I always eat out. And rent, which I live a very frugal life where I just don't spend that much money on my lifestyles. I'm pretty much a minimalist. But what I do is either take whatever profits I make from the market. I take a lot of those out and I pocket it into my basically savings, and I'm trying to accumulate enough wealth to do my end goal, which is purchase a fairly large collection of real estate so that I can have a significant amount of passive income so that I may be able to retire early and live the lifestyle that I currently live. Well, I could probably do that right now already. But live the lifestyle that I'd want to live in the future, where I'd ball out and spend all the money on girls and cars and drugs. But but for the time being, right now, I basically save for real estate investments, and that's where most of the money goes to right now.
So no girls, cars, and drugs expenses, only travel, food, and in the future, real estate.
Yeah, exactly. I prefer my whole train of thought is always, you should spend money on experiences, not on materialistic things. So the only materialistic things that I'm really going to be investing in or spending on is real estate, but that's more of an investment for the whole financial freedom meme stuff, more so than I want to buy a big house because I want to live in a big empty house, sort of a thing.
What is your biggest lesson since 2017? You had enjoyed big heights in all season 2017, suffered crippling losses, bouncing from anxiety and depression. What were your key mistakes and how you bounced from the absolute bottom?
So this is actually a really important question and a big lesson I think that a lot of individuals can learn from. But my biggest mistake in 2017 was not taking profit, right? So how I just explained, where I put a lot of money in my savings account, I wasn't doing that back in 2017, and that's what allowed me to get wrecked, like I did in 2018, and et cetera, et cetera. But from all of that, my biggest lesson was always take out profits, always take out money, because it doesn't matter if you go on a crazy winning streak, the losing streaks are always just around the corner. So if I make 100% wins or 100% gains or whatever within a short period of time, or through a series of trades, then I always take out like 50% of profit. And what I mean take out, I mean take it out of the cryptocurrency market entirely. Don't put it in US dollar and Coinbase. Don't put it in all of that. In any of that. I'm talking about pulling it out to your bank account so that it becomes a mission. It becomes, it's just one more hurdle to put that money back into the market because you're FOMOing for whatever purchase or anything like that. By putting that sort of barrier between myself and the market, it helps with sustaining those profits and actually realizing those profits instead of just gambling all of your money away, which for most times ends up with people getting wrecked. So that is definitely the biggest lesson that I learned since 2017. And I think it's a lesson that most people need to adhere to that definitely don't.
What has changed in your trading style and behavior from back then?
Back in 2017, I was predominantly known for being a scalper, a very short term day trader, where I was making multiple trades in a single day. I would trade for the most part 5 minute and 15-minute time frames, and then sometimes leading all the way up to the hour. But usually it was always under an hour time frame, like 15 minutes and the hourly were sort of my sweet spot. So that allows for the chance of making a lot more trades, but with that being said, it also allows you to lose a lot more. And in 2017, the markets were just easier to trade. I think the markets were a lot more organic, and they followed technical analysis a lot easier, in my opinion, than they do now. Now the markets are highly dominated by a lot of algo bots, a lot of quant bots, and it's just a lot more difficult to trade now. It's a lot less organic, in my opinion, than it was back in 2017. So my trading style now has changed into a lot more of a swing trade style. Just my current position right now, for example, has been open for over 2 weeks now, and it's been in profits for most of the time. But I'm just waiting to see if we have a clear exit, and if it pumps up and it stops me out, then I'll stop out at my entry. Um, but that long term sort of trading mentality is where I'm leaning towards now, more so than in 2017, where I was making like 8 trades a day. It was pretty crazy back then.
What is the best way to learn to trade with minimal losses?
A lot of people would say, I'm sure, paper trading. There's a lot of different, either test nets or exchanges that allow you to have these demo accounts and stuff like that. I personally think that that's a bad thing. I don't think that that's a good way to learn how to trade, because you don't have your actual money. You're not risking your actual money, so you kind of throw out the whole trading mental psychology sort of a thing. Once you're actually betting your own money, then that sort of psychology comes into play, and half the time when you're trading, you're basically battling yourself. So um, for sure, I think playing with real money is better than playing with paper money. But with that being said, if you're just learning how to trade, you got to make sure that you limit that exposure by quite a lot. So one thing that I always tell individuals that are just trying to get into trading, whether it's leverage trading or spot trading, is basically just put in like $100 into whatever exchange or account you're trading on. And if you can get that $100 to $1,000, then maybe you can put in $500, and then see if you can get that $500 to $5,000, and then just put in little by little from there. If you're a whale and you want to start playing with a lot or whatever, just build up your portfolio little by little and see if you can 10x the portfolio over a period of time, until you get to the point where you're continuously making profits with very minimal or little exposure. And once you get to that point of sustained growth over a long period of time, then you don't really have to put any money into the markets at all anymore. Even the, let's say, $5,000 that you can build up to of your own money putting into the market, if you 10x that and you 10x that again, and you're just continuously making profits over the course of multiple years, then that's going to become quite a substantial amount, to the point where you don't really need to put any more money into the market. So sort of that baby steps building upwards is what I recommend for individuals that are looking to get into trading, especially leverage trading.
How and when will these protests and riots will end in the US?
Oh, these are going to be some opening a can of worms, I think. But it is. I have been discussing politics quite a bit on my Twitter, so it's to be expected, I guess. I honestly think it's all going to end after November. Once the whole election year stuff is over, and either Joe Biden or Trump, become president, or whoever it is that wins, I think that's when it's all going to. I personally believe, sort of follow the money trail with a lot of these movements. They're predominantly funded and sort of coordinated with political figures and political parties, whether it's George Soros or the Open Society Foundation, or just Democrats themselves. But I do believe that there is a little bit of shadiness when you look at the back end or the backstory of a lot of these movements, and some of these things like Antifa and et cetera, that are funded by individuals like the or foundations like the Open Society Foundation. And it just, the fact that this sort of stuff happens every 4 years, whenever there's an election year, I think a lot of individuals push that sort of data aside, or they don't even look for it. But once you start looking for it and sort of follow the breadcrumb trails, not to sound too much like a conspiracy nut, because I'm usually not when it comes to politics. I know that conspiracies can go way overboard, but this sort of conspiracy theory definitely seems more like fact more than a conspiracy. So I do think that once the election year is over, we're going to start seeing a lot of the news fade away from discussing the whole Black Lives Matter organization, discussing the whole defund the police, and all of that. Once the election is done, a lot of the media, I think, is going to shift over to something else. In my opinion, I think is going to be more COVID-19 related than it is going to be about the protests, et cetera, et cetera. And once the media stops covering this stuff, then that's when people are going to stop going out. And the organizers are going to stop coordinating these organizations going forward, and things will just basically trickle out of everyone's mind. And then I'm sure probably a few months from now, something else crazy is going to happen, and people are just going to, for the most part, completely forget about a lot of this stuff that's happened, which is nuts. But that's how the media works, and that's a lot of this manipulation with the masses comes and stems from the narrative and agenda that a lot of these media platforms are pushing out on the public.
This episode is brought to you by PrimeXBT, the exchange that makes possible to trade with leverage on legacy markets from a single Bitcoin-based account. Defund the police, community police, what gives?
I don't believe in, I don't believe in defunding the police. I think that maybe you can, I believe in demilitarization of the police. Like, I don't think that, you know, the police force needs to have these armored vehicles that we had in Iraq and in Afghanistan. I think that's going overboard. There's absolutely no reason for a lot of these individuals or a lot of these police forces to have crazy things like that. There's also studies showing that militarization of police leads to more um, usually leads to more violence used by the police. You know, you kind of have that what is the term I'm looking for? It's the mentality, like when you have power over individuals, right? So when you have a regular person that's just running around and they have the ability to say, you know, do as I say or whatever, and they can like point their gun at you, then they have that sort of power mentality that a lot of these police officers have. And I'm not saying that all police officers are bad, and I'm not saying that all of them are good, but when you do have the ones that are bad and sort of abuse that power, it makes it a lot easier for them to feel safe when they're running around with, you know, an M16 basically, and flak jackets on at the entire time. So I do believe in demilitarization of the police, not necessarily defunding, because you can just shift those funds over to better training, you know, to a longer school. I think that in order to be a police officer, you shouldn't have to go to school for 3 months, 4 months, or whatever. I think that, you know, a year would sounds like a pretty good time frame. And yeah, I think you know, working the police force around something like that, reforming it to something more sane, makes more sense than defunding the police. And the whole term defunding the police is a play on words itself. It's manipulation all of its own, because when defunding the police first came out and it was being pushed by the Black Lives Matter organization, um, it sounds like a lot of individuals thought, and it sounds like, oh, taking some of the funds from the police force and reappropriating it to other social, you know, community standards or social organizations. But that's not the case. That's not what hashtag defund the police stands for. Defund the police means abolish the police. That is what it means. Black Lives Matter organization has come out and said that, and that is what they're talking about. They mean 100% defunding of the police, and that is just something I can't go behind. That's the whole Marxist mentality, and you know, in my opinion, I think it's just straight out communism. You know, they're trying to strip away the power and the system that's going on right now, so that they can replace it with their own system. But then once they do that, you
You
know,
go back to the same.
yeah, it goes back to the same. It's a vicious cycle. So it's not, in my opinion, the whole defunding the police, abolishing the police is absolutely ridiculous. Another flawed thought process that the whole Marxist movement and individuals have is that, you know, they think that, oh, if you get rid of the police and you spend all the money, because they do get a lot of money, but if you spend all of the money on, you know, social workers or whatever other memes you can put out there, then basically the people, because they have what they want, they're not gonna feel like they have to go commit crimes in order to live a happy life. And I think that's absolute bullshit, because unfortunately there's evil in the world. There are people that like to play the bad guy. There's the Tony Montanas out there that say, you know, hey, take a look at me, I'm the bad guy. There's people that like that. There's people that want that, you know. So getting rid of the police isn't going to stop those individuals. It's not going to stop the individuals that go out to school and start shooting up the school or whatever the case may be. Unfortunately, there's just a lot of evil in this world, and that's where the police force actually comes into play, to stop those individuals when it's actively happening. If there's no police and there's community police, I mean, who knows what that's even going to be? What is the training of the community police going to be? What if the people that are in the community police end up, you know, abusing their powers even more than the police force, because at least the police force has internal affairs and et cetera. Will we have that sort of structure with the community police and stuff? So to me, it seems like they're jumping before they even see what's beneath them. I can't think of the proper phrase, but it definitely seems very unplanned. Even just take a look at Minneapolis, right? Minneapolis is abolishing the police force, and when they ask them like what's going to happen, they're like, "Oh, we're still thinking about it." So how are you going to come up with the decision to abolish the police force if you're still thinking about how you're going to replace it? It's absolutely ridiculous, absolutely crazy.
I think the spotlight right now is not on the place it should be. It should be on education.
Yeah, I mean, defunding the education. That's a great point that you bring up, right? So one of the things that I saw a lot on like Facebook, et cetera, was there was a meme that said, "Oh, defunding the police sounds like a radical idea until you realize that we've been defunding the educational system for years."
Exactly.
And yeah, and to me, that's like an oxymoron, right? If you see that our education is dropping because of the fact that we defunded the educational system, what the hell makes you think that you know crime is going to drop if we defund the law enforcement system? Like, it makes no sense. You know what I mean? Like, you're if it's a one-to-one comparison, then by that nature, since from us defunding the educational system, then by that same nature, crime should increase because we're defunding. Basically, I think it's ridiculous when you look at the aspect that a lot of individuals, especially on Facebook and everything, with the memes, are saying, "Oh, defunding the police sounds radical," until you realize that we've been defunding the educational system for the past several years, for years now. And with that being said, like, how can you? It sounds like an oxymoron to me, because if you do a one-to-one comparison, then basically the education of our youth has dropped tremendously due to us defunding um, the educational system. So our education has gotten worse because we defunded the educational system. So why do you think defunding the law enforcement system will make crimes better? If anything, it'll just make crimes worse. It'll make them spike up in numbers. And I mean, just look at everything going on right now, where a lot of police forces are told to step down. Chaz and Chop, whatever you want to call it, is a perfect example of this, where when there's no police presence around, a lot of individuals are going to cause more trouble. They're going to cause more mayhem just because they feel like there's more that they can get away with. So to me, it just doesn't make sense at all when you think about defunding the police. If you think that it's gonna drop the crime rate, or it's gonna do anything for crimes, in my opinion, I think it's gonna make things worse. And making a comparison with the educational system is a perfect sort of one-to-one example of that. Our education has gotten worse, and we defunded the educational system. So our crime will get worse if we defund the law enforcement system. That's basically what I got.
Who do you think will win the presidential election for 2020?
That's a tricky question. It's funny, because if you asked 3 months ago, or even 2 months ago, who do you think will win the presidential election?
Trump.
Exactly. I mean, you don't even have to be an American. Like, everyone outside of America would still say Trump, because it would have been a landslide, right? The whole, just the Democrats and Democratic debates and everything about Joe Biden, for the most part, just screamed like a bad candidate. I mean, he's basically going through dementia. The guy he should be in a nursing home. He shouldn't be running for president. In my opinion, I think he's just going to be a political figure more so than anything. I think whoever vice president is, or the congressman and basically his staff and his cabinet, are going to be the ones sort of running the show. But
What changed in the past month then?
well, all of the protests, all of the violence. So ever since all of the violence started, and that's where I kind of say, maybe you should start digging into the history of all this stuff, who funds them, how is it being made, et cetera, because If you follow the breadcrumbs, right, let's say with Black Lives Matter organization, and they're not the only ones, but they're the biggest one right now. But um, follow the breadcrumbs with Black Lives Matter organization. They've received more than half $1 billion, so more than $500 million in donations from multiple different companies, and who knows how many from civilians and retail, et cetera, et cetera. But they've received a lot of donations, and if you go to their website and you go to donate, it'll immediately send you to a website called Act Blue. So, and if you look at the terms and services of that website, basically any funds that Black Lives Matter doesn't take from that Act Blue stuff gets immediately it belongs to Act Blue, so they can do whatever they want with that. And Act Blue is predominantly a foundation to fund the presidential elections for Democrats. So for the most part, a lot of this money that's going to BLM is actually going to Joe Biden. So even though it's supposed to be, supporting Black lives and the Black community and all that stuff, the crumbs, the breadcrumbs, and everything seems to be pointing that it's not going to that. It's going to Joe Biden. And I mean, if you just look at the history of Joe Biden himself, I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of flack from this, and I've been telling myself not to get into politics, but it is what it is. Joe Biden passed the 1994 crime bill, which had a extremely negative impact for the Black and the minority community in general. And time and time again, I mean, he's said multiple things that were extremely racist. Just listen to his presentation of the 1994 crime bill. It sounds extremely racist. He's called people Shylocks. There's the whole, even recently he says, if you don't vote for me, you're not Black. And like all this stuff is just a lot of stuff. There's a lot of spotlight going on to Trump, as it should be. He's the president, and I also think he's, I don't know if you want curse words on here or not, but I also think he's a piece of shit, personally.
Curse him.
But
I don't care.
okay, I'm not a very big fan of Trump, but at the same time, you can't be one of the things that I get flack for is, oh my God, you're a Trump supporter. That's not the case. I'm not a Trump supporter, but you have to look at elections and everything from a logical point of view, from a bird's eye view. You have to get the full picture. Even if you don't like Trump, like myself, for example, I don't like Trump, but even if I don't like him, I'm not going to not vote for him just because I hate him, right? Without doing any sort of research on his opposing party. Like, oh, I hate Trump, he sucks, I'm going to vote for Joe Biden. Yeah, but have you done any sort of research on Joe Biden? Right? If you haven't done the research on Joe Biden, and there's tons of it because he's been in power for more than 40 plus years or something. So he has a lot of stuff that you can research behind him. But even if even if you don't like Trump, or you think he's a racist or whatever, if you don't do the research on Joe Biden, and which is why I think that he's staying so silent right now, because he doesn't want the spotlight on him so that people don't do research on his past and everything else, then you're basically voting out one racist in order to vote in another racist. And to me, that's just illogical. I think that's just dumb. And unfortunately, I think a lot of individuals that get wrapped up in this whole political argument stuff are pretty dumb. No offense. But take a look at both parties, whoever you vote for, even if you vote for Democrats, whatever, as long as it's something that you believe in and you want and you can back wholeheartedly after you've done the full research, then do that. Then by all means, as long as you can argue, counter argue saying, oh, I believe in this, then that's fine. I think more individuals should sort of look past the personalities of a president and look more towards the policies that they're trying to push. Like, I personally don't want to pay more taxes. I'm sorry. That's just what I just don't want to pay more taxes. I'm sure a lot of people out there don't want to pay more taxes. So that's why I'm leaning, especially now, more towards the right than to the left, right? More Republican than Democratic. I consider myself an independent, so I'm very fluid. I hop, sometimes I'm more on Democrat side, sometimes more on Republican side. It depends. I'm pro-choice. If LGBTQ, whatever the hell they want to do with themselves or their body, that's completely fine. Like, as long as it doesn't affect me, I don't really care, right? But So I'm definitely more independent, and I am liberal in some sense. But when you look at Joe Biden as the presidential candidate versus Trump, it's sort of that rock and a hard spot, right? Where both candidates suck ass again, just like last election when it was Hillary Clinton and Trump. Both candidates suck ass, and unfortunately, you have to choose the lesser of two evils. And in my opinion, I think it's Trump, just for the sole fact that one, he can have a verbal discussion without saying something stupid. What if Joe Biden's out talking um, to Kim Jong-un or something, and he calls him like a racist slur without even thinking about it? That's a huge red flag. You can't have a president that does something like that, or is even at the risk of doing something like that. And that's something that a lot of people don't take into account. Like, I personally don't think that Joe Biden is fit to be president mentally, right? And a lot of the other stuff with the Democrats pushing, the whole defunding the police and the raising on taxes and stuff like that, I just can't get behind. So that's why I'm leaning more towards Trump. Now, to answer your question, who will win the 2020 presidential elections? Before, it would have been Trump, a landslide. But now, with all of this crazy stuff that, for the most part, Democrats stirred up and the media stirred up in order to bring that emotional anger towards the public, so that they can get emotional long enough so that when the election time does come up, they're angry enough to actually go out to the polls, to actually go vote, because they want to vote whoever's in power out. They want change because they're not happy with whatever's going on right now. So I think that's the whole sort of agenda that's going on right now. And unfortunately, now I think it's more of a 50-50 chance. I have no idea who's going to win, but now I think Joe Biden definitely stands a chance at becoming president with the 2020 election. So we'll see what happens on November. But either way, I'm not going to be in America, so I don't really care.
Then off to the last question. How does one survive economically and achieve financial freedom even during these times?
That's a hard question, especially during these times. I think, even outside of these times, obviously having a blue collar work, working with your hands, a craft, construction, et cetera, like that stuff is all good and dandy, and it's always going to be there. So it's always good work. But working online and sort of working online or finding work online is always going to be better in terms of financial freedom, just because you're able to travel more and do whatever you want more. Let's say wherever you're currently living is too expensive, you can move somewhere else, and as long as you're working online and it's cheaper, then you can work with that as you grow your business online. So I think that working online, whatever it may be, whether you're selling things online, drop shipping, e-commerce, SEO, or online marketing, affiliate marketing, whatever the case may be, there's a lot of different things that you can do online. But I think working online is definitely the best way to survive economically during these times, and also to achieve financial freedom. And of course, long Bitcoin, 100x all the way, financial freedom for days.
100x. That's a sound advice, man.
Not financial advice.
And with that thought, we end our episode. I'm honored to have Wolf on Point Blank. Thanks for coming on, man. Can you tell us where we can find you?
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, man. I know we branched off into politics quite a bit. I apologize for individuals that are tired of hearing me talk about politics, but you guys can find me on Twitter at I'm Not The Wolf, and then as well on YouTube. Just search I'm Not The Wolf, or youtube.com/C/I'm Not The Wolf. Those are my two main media outlets that I've been using lately.
Sweet. Thanks for listening. Until next time. Peace. This episode was brought to you by PrimeXBT, the exchange where you can trade without KYC on legacy markets with your Bitcoin. You can trade commodities like gold, silver, oil, even indexes and forex. Join now and get a 50% bonus on top of your deposit for trading at u.primexbt.com/Panama.